Good morning, everyone. My name is Megan Vandevoorn, and I'm the Director of Recruitment and Admissions here at Huron at Western University. So I'm joined today with some of our famous alumni who are lawyers in various areas, and they're really excited to share with you some of their experiences, as well as provide you with any recommendations on pursuing the career of law, and share with you any stories that they have on their progress into their fields. So we'll just wait a minute or so for everyone to join in, and then we'll get started with some of the questions. All right, so I think we'll get started with some of the questions. So again, welcome everyone. I'm here with some of our fantastic alumnus who are ready to share with you stories of their progress as they entered their careers within the area of law. We have some great questions lined up, as well as there's the opportunity for you to ask your questions through the Q&A button. So you can either raise your hand or type your question in. So let's get started by our panelists introducing themselves. So we'll start with Chelsea, if you're able to tell us a little bit about yourself and what roles you've had since graduation and how you came into, lead your position that you're currently doing.
Sure. So my name is Chelsea Smith. I'm originally from London, Ontario, and I still live in London, Ontario. I studied English and French at Huron, and I graduated in 2011. And then after that, I took a year off from school, and I did the Odyssey program, which had me working as a language assistant, teaching English and French in a town about 3 hours north of Quebec City. And then after that, I went to law school. I did a joint program for law school. So I went to Western Law and Laval, which is in Quebec City. And that allowed me to study both common law, which is the legal system that exists in some form all across Canada, but definitely in the English-speaking provinces. And then also Quebec civil law. And I also did something called a diplôme de français juridique, which allowed me to study legal language in French. After that, I articled at a law firm here in London, Ontario, where I had previously worked as a summer student, and I've been there ever since. I do class actions law and mass torts law and complex multi-party litigation. So I work on a lot of high-profile cases, such as the Volkswagen diesel emissions scandal class action, Takata Airbags class actions, some pharmaceutical class actions, various cases like that. And it's a lot of fun. One other opportunity that I'll just mention that I did, during law school, I worked one summer at the United Nations, briefing the Canadian legal secretary and Canadian ambassador to the UN in Geneva on a variety of international law related issues. And it was a great summer, and I highly recommend an opportunity like that if you ever get the chance.
Great, thank you, Chelsea. Taylor, would you be able to introduce yourself next and share your story of how you became, made it to the UK and within your position, and how Huron prepared you for that?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Harris. I'm born and raised in Toronto, and I decided to go to Huron started in 2009, and I majored in globalization and philosophy double major. And the double major actually turned out quite successful for me in my legal career to kind of be accepted to law school. I graduated Huron in 2013, and I decided to take a graduate position at the Canadian Football League in their marketing department. I had done a series of marketing internships throughout kind of my end of high school and through my university time at Huron. And I did the 8-month program there while thinking that law school was kind of still on the cards, but wanted to kind of experience working in Toronto. So I was living in Toronto at that time. I started making applications both in Canada and the UK, as well as the United States, for law schools. So I took the LSAT a couple of times because I'm not the best at standardized testing. And then also applied in the UK, which is a single application, as it is for all undergraduate programs. You don't need to have a undergraduate degree to study law or medicine in the UK, and it's a single codified application. So one application for 5 schools, and there's no LSAT. So a little bit of a different process. And I did that kind of in the fall before I decided to go to law school. I then moved to Whistler actually to do a ski season, and actually was accepted to Cambridge University to study law when I was at the top of Whistler Mountain, which is quite one of my favorite stories. And then I ended up studying law. I did a 2-year accelerated course in law at Cambridge, studying kind of the base foundational courses and also doing company law, which I was focused on in my second year. And I did, as Chelsea did, a summer program at a firm I am still at now. I practice corporate law at Hogan Lovells, which is an international law firm based in London, and we're based in Washington and London as our headquarters, but we're in 26 countries worldwide. And I focus mainly on cross-border mergers and acquisitions and other capital market type of transactions. So that's a lot of listing kind of shares or bonds on international markets like the London Stock Exchange or the New York Stock Exchange, Toronto Stock Exchange, and kind of focusing on buying and selling of things. And then that usually involves kind of either companies or business parts of businesses in other countries. Similar to, as Chelsea said, the UK is also a common law system. So I'm accredited in the UK, but I could try to re-qualify back in Canada following a series of examinations. So that's me. I've been at my firm for about 3 years. My name's Taylor.
Great, thank you, Taylor. Eula, will you be able to please share with us your story and how your studies at Huron helped prepare you for where you are today?
Sure. So my name is Eula Ventresca. I'm an equity partner at Learners LLP in London, Ontario. I'm a Londoner. My partner is a professor at Western, so we knew that we were going to settle down in London. Tenure track positions are hard to come by, so and I don't regret that choice one bit. I'm first generation lawyer, so no one in my family had been a lawyer, gone to law school before me, so I was a bit in the dark about the process. I majored in political science and history at Huron, and I'll just pause here for a moment to say that one of the questions I'm always asked is, what should I take, to give me a good foundation for law school? And there are a bunch of routes to law school in terms of your undergraduate degree. But I just want to dispel at the outset one of the most common myths I hear, that is a liberal arts education is not going to prepare you for law school, because it was, in fact, exactly the opposite in my case. I took history and political science. What those degrees did is teach me how to think, teach me how to write, teach me how to put together a cogent and persuasive argument that as a litigator now have been invaluable to me in terms of my practice, and I think have set me apart in terms of distinguishing myself in both my written and oral advocacy. So after I graduated from Huron, I have to say that I was a waitress and a bartender all the way through my undergraduate studies. And very interestingly, those jobs gave me some really important skills that I didn't think I would get in terms of a law career, like, you know, really listening to someone, understanding where people were coming from, you know, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, client management. So those were really helpful to me. I went to Western. I did I'm of the vintage where I received an LLB in law from Western. And then I went on to do a master's degree in law from the University of Toronto. I did that full time right after I articled at Learners. And then I've been at Learners ever since. So for the last 13 years, from being an associate to a non-equity partner to equity partnership. I practice health law, labor law, employment law. I'm a workplace investigator. I do human rights law. I'm like that, you know, old town lawyer who hangs up their shingle and does everything kind of in a modern context. That's how I describe myself. So I'll go back to your, Megan, the kind of foundational questions, what Huron did for me. And what I'll say is that Huron gave me the tools to think. It gave me a framework for thinking about problems. It gave me a framework for resolving problems, and it gave me the language to use when explaining problems to others, which of course in the law is invaluable.
Great, thank you for that. And just to add to that, so you did a great description of kind of what to expect in your undergrad and what type of learning helps prepare you for going to the area. We have some students joining us today who are all over the world, and law works differently in many other countries. As Taylor mentioned, the system for education in the UK. So just wondering if you'd be able to kind of elaborate on when you were studying at Huron, then you wrote your exams and your articling. So maybe if you could share with our viewers today on what exactly do those steps entail, and what should students expect after they finish their undergraduate degree, and what is articling? If you're able to kind of elaborate on that a little bit.
Up to me.
Sure, great.
Yeah. So I'll just talk about it briefly from a UK perspective, as I've never articled in Canada. But just building on what Eula said, I 100% agree about a liberal arts. I see a couple questions in the chat already about what's the best degree. And I really think, as I remember when I was in grade 12, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. And it's one of the reasons why I came to Huron. Small class sizes, people to talk to about what would be interesting, took classes I was interested in, found what I liked, found what I didn't like, which I think is almost as more important than finding out what you like. And so I thought that was a big foundational point. I think to answer the question in the chat, what to take, something you're interested in, because you're going to be more motivated to kind of be successful and get a bit better grades, be more kind of involved. And I think that really builds the foundational skills, again, Eula was talking about. So if you're kind of thinking of what I need to do to get to a law school, it's to find something you're interested in, to motivate yourself. And that also differentiates yourself. You have a reason and a kind of an attitude on your application, which is, I really enjoyed what I did in my undergraduate degree, and that's quite helpful. And that was definitely the case for me. As far as kind of the articling process, in the UK, we call it vacation scheme. You have an up and then training contract, same idea. You have a opportunity to do a summer internship for about 2 or 3 weeks, which I know is a bit shorter than Canada. And then you get a opportunity to do a 2-year articling, or we call it in the UK, a training contract, whereby you sit in 4 different 6-month seats. So you may sit in litigation. I sat in financial services litigation. You may sit in corporate. I sat in corporate. And then maybe could be an IP, or maybe a data protection, whatever it may be, and then usually a secondment to another office or to a client. So I was fortunate enough to move to Singapore for 6 months to work in the corporate team in our Singapore office, which was quite an experience, kind of getting to work in another country and also kind of a different place of business.
Great, thank you. And Chelsea, maybe if you could add on to the articling. So Taylor had mentioned that you're seconded to different areas, but are you supporting lawyers in your work, or kind of what is the expectation of your role during that time?
Sure. So the process in Canada differs by province in terms of the length of articling, or whether you do bar school or articling. I'm currently doing, well, I was supposed to do my Quebec bar exams to become called in Quebec, licensed in Quebec to practice law this year, but they were put on hold because of the pandemic, as many other things were. But in Ontario, you don't have to be a summer student. I was a summer student for 4 months. Well, I was one of my summers in law school, but that's optional. Articling is 10 months, and it's like a paid internship. It differs by firm, what's expected of you and what practice areas you're going to be exposed to. If you article at a firm that is a boutique firm and practices in one specific area, that's what experience you're going to be exposed to. The firm I'm at and the firm that Eula is at are full service firms. So students at those firms who are articling, I don't know if Learners does this, but at Mackenzie Lake, you do 4 rotations to get exposed to different groups. So you do 1 rotation in corporate, 2 in litigation, and 1 in family at our firm. Firms that are larger in Toronto have more detailed rotations to go through. And during that time, you do a little bit of work on your own, but it's always supervised by lawyers. So you might go to the small claims court and do a trial there. But you also get to assist lawyers on larger files at higher levels of court. So I got to draft materials for appeals at the Divisional Court and the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court while I was a student. I got to go on mediations. I got to speak to matters, the family law at the courthouse, and speak to uncontested motions every week at the courthouse, and just whatever I was interested into, the firm was happy to match me to opportunities that would allow me to explore those areas further, because it's kind of like 10 months to try out what I liked and find out what I liked and figure out what I don't want to do. I landed in class actions because of my dual law degrees and the fact that I speak French as well. They really had a need on our team for someone who could speak French and practice in Quebec.
Great, thank you for sharing. So our next question is if you can each kind of give a rundown of what a typical day at the office looks like. So many of you are in different areas of law, so if you can share with us kind of, 9 to 5 of what your day looks like and what a typical day of a lawyer is.
I can start that one, and I'll start that one by giving a very lawyerly answer and saying that it depends. For me, my days vary tremendously. And I have to add here that what it looks like to be a lawyer changes, or at least it did for me. And I think many people would say the same thing, the further along you get in your practice. For the first couple of years of my practice, I was doing a lot of drafting for the lawyers that I was working with. I was doing a lot of the groundwork in terms of getting questions ready for trials or for cross-examinations. And then you, at some point, start to make this shift to the adult table, as I call it, and you're the one asking the questions, and you're the one out of the office. You're the one that is appearing before the court as first chair. So it really differs. I start my day usually with a team meeting with the lawyers and my staff. And then depending on the day, I'll either be in the office, finalizing work for clients, finalizing briefs for the court, or I'll be in hearings, before either the Ontario Superior Court of Justice or the various regulated health professional tribunals that I appear before. So it really depends. And that's actually one of the things that I like about the law the most is that I never have the same day and I never have the same week. And it's also, it keeps you stimulated. It keeps you engaged with different people. You're meeting clients, you're working as a team with other lawyers, you're working with staff. So I think that the diversity in your days is actually one of the things that I enjoy the most about the law.
Great. Taylor, are you able to share your experiences?
Yeah, I would definitely agree that it's definitely ever changing. It's definitely not like Suits and other lawyer shows that you see on TV. I think that's quite a glamorous kind of imaginative world. For me, I don't ever go to court, which is slightly different to the others here. Being a corporate lawyer, I would say that a lot of my day is kind of managing the transaction. And that's usually done in a very collaborative way. Our teams can be anywhere between 3 and kind of 15 or 20 lawyers depending on the size of the transaction. And so there's various work streams that you're sort of working through on a daily, weekly, or even monthly basis. And as a junior, I've only been in my team for just under a year, actually, so not even a full year. It follows a lot of it to kind of almost like juggling different work streams, keeping all the balls in the air at the same time. And I think something that is very important is kind of keeping yourself prioritized and keeping kind of time management skills and other sort of organizational skills to allow you to kind of meet the expectations, which are having the information about each of the several work streams, but then also progressing your own work. And your own work could be drafting kind of simplistic documents that are a bit ancillary to kind of the main purchase agreements, as well as doing a lot of the filings. For example, right now I'm working on a filing to one of the exchanges in London, of the London Stock Exchange, and that is a series of steps that you have to go through. And as a junior lawyer, you're expected to make sure you know the steps, and then also kind of can provide timelines and information about how we're going to achieve those to the client. And that would be the secondary part, would be interacting with clients on a daily basis, both by phone and by email, and learning kind of how to have a professional relationship with them, but also kind of a personable relationship to make sure that you kind of work effectively. And a lot of our deals have investment bankers or potentially other advisors. So it's not just kind of you and the client, it's sort of several different parties who all have slightly different interests in the transaction, and making sure that everyone kind of stays happy. And a lot of the times that can be done via calls. We used to do meetings. Now I think it's a bit more Zoom like this. But it's definitely exciting. It's definitely hard work too. So I don't think there's anything to be said that it has quite long days at sometimes, and sometimes weekends. But at the end of the day, it's kind of about getting the job done.
Great, thank you. And Chelsea, are you able to share what your daily experiences are?
Sure. So like the other two panelists, it's never the same, which I enjoy. I like the variety, both in pace, although there's always a steady flow of work, but different tasks have different paces, and I appreciate that. I'm not at the adult table yet. I'm a fourth-year associate, so I still spend a lot of my day drafting documents, doing legal research, reviewing documents. Class actions is very document heavy. I mean, we might get millions of documents through the discovery process from the other side, the defendants. So there's always a lot to review. I supervise a team of clerks. I have to supervise work that we have our students do for us. I interact with class members. Some of our cases have tens of thousands of class members. So if they have questions that my staff can't answer, then I get on the phone with them or email them. Pre-pandemic, I traveled a lot for my job. I traveled to the US a lot because a lot of the class actions we have here also exist either in the class action or the mass tort form south of the border. So we would work together with US counsel. I have cases all across the country, so I would travel to out west or to Montreal a lot. Before the pandemic, now it's on Zoom. So I can be in 3 different provinces in court the same day, because it's all virtual. So it's more efficient now, definitely. But yeah, I spend a lot of time drafting documents, a lot of time sitting at a computer. So it's not like how it is on TV shows. Taylor's right.
I've had many students that I meet in their 12th year of high school, and they say that they want to be a lawyer, but they really don't enjoy research. So I think it's interesting to have a full perspective of how much research and reviewing and attention to detail is an important part of the role. So it's great to hear from all of you on that. So that are prospective lawyers are able to kind of get a full picture of what the expectation and what the role is really like. So within your roles and the different areas that you are within your careers, what do you think would be kind of your suggestion for students who are looking to go into practicing law in the future, and what recommendations do you have for them, and any learning outcomes that maybe through your steps along the way that you learned and kind of wish that you would do a little bit differently?
I can start off with this one. I think for me, when I was at Huron, I always had kind of an inclination I would like to go into law, but I feel like I just didn't necessarily know what the system really kind of meant and how to approach it. It almost seemed kind of too big and a little bit scary. And I think honestly, you kind of go to the research point, the information is actually out there. And I think that, for example, I used Huron's academic counselors quite effectively, in my opinion, and they really helped me. Deciding to help kind of pursue a second degree and get a double major is probably the only reason I got into Cambridge, and that was a decision that I made with a counselor. And she and I were able to discuss kind of what careers in law and what the different kind of routes were to achieve that goal. And I think that was quite a good launch point for me, because then I was able to do a little research on my own. She gave me some steers. I took an introduction to law class at Western main campus, because Huron's a great place where you only need to take 50%, just over 50% of your classes at Huron. So you get everything that Western has to offer and the best location on campus, so close to everything else. So I did take an intro to law class, which has professors from the Western Law School teaching a couple of classes, different classes. Again, a little bit of information here and there just to get a tidbit. I don't think you need to, so again, seeing some of the questions in the chat, work in legal related roles in high school or even in undergraduate. I think it's more about just taking experiences and taking, as Eula said, the foundational skills from other professions. She was working in a bar, in a restaurant. That's interaction, that's client relationship, that's service skills that you need as a lawyer. So it's more about, I think, learning what you can through the career services and other events and fairs that the university or even your high schools put on, and then doing a little due diligence and kind of research yourself. I think that would be kind of my goal.
I can pick it up from there. And I agree with everything that Taylor said. In terms of my own trajectory, I think that I would have saved myself a lot of, I think I worried a lot about what I was doing, what my extracurriculars were, and how those might look to a potential employer in the law. And so I fell into, I think it makes sense to think, okay, well, if I do an internship in law in high school or in undergrad, that's going to help me, and certainly can't hurt, but that's not the only way. And certainly it's not, at least as someone now who sits on interview panels, the majority of the students that we hire, articling students that we hire, don't have those experiences. What we're looking for are characteristics. You know, has this person shown resilience? Is this person, you know, Taylor spoke about organization, which I think we can't speak about enough. Organization, time management. Is this person a self-starter? How did this person deal with failure? You know, I got a C in my first year of law school at the midterm, and I thought my whole world was going to fall apart, you know? So, and I actually had the opportunity to speak about it during my articling interviews. I had never seen a C outside of the alphabet on a transcriptive line or mark I'd ever received in my life. So it was shocking to me. But you know, I rebounded from that. I worked hard, you know, I worked to bring that mark up. And then doing a postmortem with some of my interviewers, those were the things that they picked up on. You know, we're all going to have points where we don't live up to our expectations. And so what I'm looking for are, what did these experiences tell me about this person? You know, what do these experiences show me about this person? Do these experiences tell me that this is a person who is going to be able to effectively manage their time, is going to be able to prioritize work, is organized, is resilient, is able to take constructive feedback. Does their undergraduate degree speak to set of skills? And so, if I look back, I would say that I stressed a little too much about being strategic about my choices, when I think what I should have done is really just focused on what I enjoyed and had that speak for itself, because that really is, the best thing to do. It shows your authenticity. That comes through really clearly during interviews, and it shows a degree of self-confidence that you've done something that you enjoy and that you love, and now you're going to take those skills and apply them to the practice of law. Because as I've said, some questions have come up about how do I get, what's a path after grade 12? Well, the most typical path is 4 years of undergrad and then 3 years of law school and a year of articling and then the call to the bar. So, do what you love, enjoy yourself. If you do get into a law career, you're going to be doing law for the rest of your life. Take that time in undergrad to do something that you're really passionate about and get involved in things that you're really passionate about.
I guess I can, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I will just add that I've met a lot of students who are interested in pursuing law over the years. And there's definitely some that you'll recognize right away who are, it seems like they're tailoring their resume or their application, and they're spending so much time stressing and worrying about having everything perfect and being in the perfect path towards law school. But I really don't think that exists. And you can tell in interviews, whether it's from the law school admissions interview or committees looking at your application, or an interview. I've sit on interviews for our student positions and our law clerk positions at the office, and it's obvious because people have looked at so many applications and interviews. It's obvious when you are padding your resume with extracurricular experiences that don't really mean anything to you and that you're not really involved in other than just being a member. And you're doing that for the purpose of getting in. Whereas there's that, and then there's the experience which can be distinguished, which is where someone has 1 or 2 activities that they are so passionate about, and it just, it's like a light is off in the interview, or a light turns on in the interview, and you can just tell that they're so genuinely passionate about something, and they've been the vice president or of a committee or a club, and they've invested a lot of time into that and balanced it with their studies, as opposed to signing up for a club and never going to a single meeting. So I would just caution not to do that, because it's very obvious to people who are on the admissions side or interviewing you for a job. I will also add that law schools and law firms are looking for candidates who are well-rounded and interesting. So as Eula and Taylor both said, do something that you enjoy, because there's so many reasons to do that. You're more likely to succeed in it. If you decide that in the end you're not going to apply to law school, you don't have this free law studies degree that doesn't open other doors for you necessarily. And it's just, you'll enjoy it. You'll meet people who you like. So I would just encourage you to do whatever it is that you enjoy during your undergrad and during high school. And then I will just add as well that one thing that was really beneficial that I didn't know, I was 17 when I started university at Huron, but I didn't know the importance of being at a small school until later on when I was applying for law school. And you have to have reference letters for your law school application. And it was so easy to get very strong reference letters from my Huron professors, because I had them 3 or 4 times during my time there, and they knew what extracurricular activities I was involved in at Huron and could really write very strong letters. Whereas I had friends applying from larger schools to law school, and they were so stressed, like, who am I going to ask for a reference letter? And it was just causing them so much stress and anxiety that I had no problem getting reference letters from professors, and that was because of Huron.
Could I just add one more thing? And I'm sorry that I didn't mention this going in. When we say, I just want to make it really clear to everyone who's listening that when we say what kind of experiences should you have, what kind of internships should you do, there's a really good discussion going on in the legal profession right now about taking a look inward and examining our own biases and diversifying the profession. And I want people to know that, for someone like me, I did not have the means not to work during high school and undergrad and law school for that matter. And so I was really of the view that that was going to be held against me because, I did not have some of these like more impressive, certainly more impressive work experience on my resume or internships on my resume. And what I want to tell you is that that is something that we're cognizant of. We're cognizant of making sure that we understand that people come from a wide variety of backgrounds. We really want to expand accessibility to the profession. And so I want to just make sure that the message is out there that you can come to law from a variety of different backgrounds and from a variety of different experiences. And in fact, those perspectives are something that you really want in the profession. You really want people with diverse backgrounds to be members of our community.
Thank you, Eula. And just to add to that, I'll start with Eula, and maybe if Chelsea and Taylor can also share for our last question. So you mentioned kind of, we've talked about what to expect in your undergrad, what courses, what program paths are great options, and what types of skills future lawyers should work on while they're preparing for going into it. But when was it that you decided that Huron was the right fit for you? And in what year, or whether it was in high school before you even went to university, did you know that going into law was the area that you wanted to practice? We have students who are in grade 11 and grade 12 who are interested in going into law right now. And then we have students who have finished university and then decide that it's a area that they'd like to get into. So kind of if we could just end with your Huron experiences, what brought you to Huron and how Huron prepared you and helped you kind of get into the industry that you're currently in.
Okay, so if you had asked 5-year-old Eula what she wanted to be, I think I have a picture of this, although we don't have those fancy like chalkboards. It would say like, I want to be a lawyer. So it was a lifelong dream for me. So I knew pretty early, although I didn't have a sense of what precisely it meant. I think, like as Taylor was talking about the TV lawyers and suits, I probably was more of that view. In terms of what made me decide to come to Huron, I had a full gamut of offers of scholarship from Queen's, from U of T, from Huron, and I decided to come to Huron because of, well, two things. Firstly, a good friend had gone to Huron before me and spoke really highly of the program. And second, I was very attracted to the idea of a small liberal arts education. I liked the idea of my professor knowing who I was. I liked the idea of getting to know, my classmates well. I liked the values. I think that's a good word to use, the values that I saw permeate from Huron around integrity, around educating the whole person, not just, feeding you with facts and sending you on your way, that this was a place to become a well-rounded citizen, someone with ideas, someone who could think critically, someone who could contribute to the world in a positive way. along with giving you the skills that you needed to excel in your profession. So that for me was, the linchpin. And then I saw the success of the graduates, and the support that Huron continued to give them well after they had left the doors in their fourth year. And that being part of a community like that was something that was very appealing to me. So all of those things combined made me decide to go to Huron. My decision to go to law school was only solidified at Huron. But I will say, and this is a testament to Huron, I enjoyed my professors so much that there's a brief flirtation with academia while I was in law school, while I was at Huron. But I ended up going to law school, but that was because of how much I respected the professors who taught me and what they did for me, and really the incredible impact they had on my life. And I'm still in touch with them. And I graduated in 2002. And so I'm still in touch with a handful of those professors to this day. And I think that's something very special, something that doesn't happen often, is very unique to Huron.
That's great. Chelsea, are you able to share, please?
Yes, of course. I don't remember wanting to be a lawyer when I was younger. I don't think I really understood what a lawyer was. I wanted to be a martial arts instructor and a helicopter pilot at one point. But my family members and teachers that I had in high school had always said, like, you should be a lawyer, you should be a lawyer. And I was kind of stubborn and like, no, I'm not going to be a lawyer. And then I graduated Huron, and I took a year off to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was teaching in Quebec, as I already mentioned, during that year. And teaching was great. I really enjoyed it. And I had previously been teaching swimming lessons and managing a pool during this time, during undergrad and high school. So I had some exposure to teaching, but never in like traditional form outside of water, I guess. During that time, I really liked teaching, and it had its own challenges and benefits, but I needed more, I guess, intellectual stimulation than teaching was providing. I needed more like intellectual challenges. So I remember at the time, my now husband was still a student at Huron, and I would ask him about every detail of the lectures he attended, the papers he was writing. It probably drove him crazy because I was just so in need for more difficult challenges. So I decided that year to apply for law school. I applied to 3 Canadian schools, McGill, Ottawa, and the Western Laval thing that I ended up doing because I wanted to keep up my French that I had spent 4 years learning at Huron. But that's why I eventually decided to go to law school, and I really enjoyed it. I also kept teaching because I teach at Western Law as an adjunct professor. I teach law classes in French at the JD and LLM level. But Huron, as Eula said, the professors really go out of like above and beyond for you. My husband and I, we met at Huron, and we got married at Huron a couple of years ago, and I'm still in touch, as Eula is, with a number of the professors I had at Huron. And one of them, his son was graduating in the US in North Carolina, and he drove through the night so that he could attend my wedding. And I had other profs attend my wedding. My husband had some of his profs because we weren't in the same program. So they really go above and beyond when you're a student. And even after, I had professors, as I already mentioned, write reference letters for me that helped me get into law school. And I was accepted early at all 3 of the schools I applied to with scholarships. And one of them, McGill, wrote in their acceptance letter that one thing that really stood out about my application was the strength of the reference letters from 2 profs, one, Dr. Ionescu from the French department and Dr. Brooks from the English department. And then Dr. Ionescu also wrote a reference letter that helped me get the job at the UN in Geneva after my second year of law school. So it's a relationship that continues after you graduate, definitely, I would say.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing, Chelsea. And Taylor.
Yeah, I think just building on both, and I think it's very rare and unique, and it's why all three of us really speak highly of it. It's just the community of Huron. I remember visiting. I had one of my best friend's older sisters was there, and my older sister also went there in the 90s. So I had some background, but it's the community, it's the support, it's the knowing people's names, it's the smallness of the campus in a bigger campus. I always really wanted to go to a university town, coming from Toronto, which is a bit of a bigger city, and London seemed kind of the perfect opportunity, and Huron seemed like the great place to be a bit of a balance. I was never really that academically, and still not really that academically strong. I've had quite a number of fails over my course, and I think that's part of the growing process. And one of the things I always learned was smaller class sizes were better for me. I interacted when I wasn't distracted by other students. I had a relationship with the professor. There was opportunities to talk with them, and that was the big selling point for me. And it made me quite a much better candidate to be successful just out of that sheer fact of proximity. I could speak with them, I could talk to them. But I think the thing that all three of us, again, speak about is the ongoing relationship. And it's the relationship you have with the university when you go back as kind of this structure, the buildings, the scenery, but then also the people. Most of my best friends, even in London, people that live across the street from me, graduated my year at Huron. Two of them live together, and it's like Huron's here in the UK. It's all over the world, and that's a really interesting and, again, unique and rare experience to have at a university level, because a lot of people might have it at high school, but then it can dissipate. And so that was a big thing for me personally. And then with law school, I don't think I wanted to be a lawyer until I was in law school, to be honest. I have two parents that are both lawyers, so I was maybe pushed and maybe almost pushed against from going into that practice. And one of the reasons why I probably moved quite a long way away from home to kind of do it myself. But I think the most important thing to remember is that law school and being a lawyer are, in my opinion, separate. In the UK, you don't need to have a law degree to become a lawyer. You can take an expedited course, and half of our lawyers at my firm in the UK, so about 800 lawyers, half of them didn't study law. So I think it's important to know that law school is just a great foundational course for anything. It's by far the hardest thing I have ever done and probably will ever do in my whole life. So it sets you up to kind of belief in yourself that you can do it, and it gives you those skills, which I think is quite a settling feature for any path in life, whether it's going to the UN, whether it's working in business, whether it's becoming a professor. I think the most important thing is that it's a set of skills, and those kind of give you little tickets that you can kind of move through life with and build upon. So I think Huron really sets you up for that because it gives you those foundational skills to be successful. It gives you the professors to teach you how to do it. And most importantly, I think it gives you the confidence, which I definitely don't think I had at 18, to say, look, I can go across the ocean, or I can go to another university for law school and compete against people that are quite successful in their own right and be successful myself. And I think that is such a valuable piece of confidence that you can kind of take forward. And so Huron gave me that for sure. And I think that excelled me through my law school and legal career.
Great, thank you for that. So this brings us to the end of our session. Want to thank all of our panelists today for taking the time to share their experiences with us today. It's invaluable, the knowledge that you have brought, and the opportunity for our students to learn from you directly on what to expect every step of the way into their legal careers. So really appreciate the time that you took today. If you have any additional questions that weren't answered today, please email us. We'd be happy to get back to you. You can email huron@uwo.ca. And thank you again for your time. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.